Beijing, September 10th, 2025. In a carefully measured yet unmistakably firm statement, China has condemned Israel for its recent strike in the Qatari capital, Doha. The announcement came less than 24 hours after reports confirmed that Israeli forces had targeted Hamas political leaders residing in Qatar, killing several senior officials. Speaking at the Foreign Ministry's regular press briefing in Beijing, Ministry spokesman Lin Jian left no doubt about China's position. China strongly condemns the attack that took place in Qatar's capital Doha yesterday and firmly opposes Israel's act of violation of Qatar's territorial sovereignty and national security, Lin Jian told assembled reporters. His words, translated swiftly into English, were broadcast across global media, signaling Beijing's stance on what it sees as a dangerous escalation in an already volatile region. Beijing's choice of language was deliberate and notable. Chinese diplomacy rarely escalates its rhetoric unless the matter is of serious concern. To express concern is routine. To oppose signals disapproval. But to strongly condemn indicates the issue has crossed a threshold. Lin's remarks highlighted sovereignty, a concept that Beijing consistently emphasizes in its own foreign policy. The spokesman's use of firmly opposes tied Israel's strike directly to China's larger narrative that no nation has the right to violate the territorial integrity of another. This language resonates strongly with Beijing's domestic and international policy, especially in light of its own concerns over Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. The Israeli strike did not take place in Gaza or Lebanon, where such operations are often anticipated. Instead, it struck in Doha, a city better known for skyscrapers, sports diplomacy, and quiet mediation than for military conflict. Qatar has long maintained a balancing act. It hosts Hamas's political leadership, engages with the West, and is home to one of the United States' largest overseas air bases. For Doha, this attack was a direct violation of sovereignty. For Gulf states, it raised uncomfortable questions. If Israel can strike within Qatar, could others be next? For China, Qatar is more than just another Gulf monarchy. It is one of Beijing's largest suppliers of liquefied natural gas, with decades-long contracts securing vital energy flows. Any instability in Qatar, therefore, threatens Chinese interests directly. Beijing's condemnation of the strike is not just rhetorical solidarity, it is also a defense of its energy security. China's strong response also reflects its growing ambitions as a global mediator. Earlier this year, Beijing successfully brokered a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two regional powers long at odds. That agreement elevated China's credibility as a peace broker in the Middle East. Now, with tensions flaring in Doha, Beijing is positioning itself once again as a defender of smaller nations against aggression. By siding with Qatar, China reinforces its image as a global player, advocating for dialogue, restraint, and respect for sovereignty. The broader message is clear. Beijing will not remain silent when regional conflicts threaten both its interests and international stability. Israel, already under scrutiny for its aggressive campaign against Hamas, will likely view China's condemnation with concern. Although Beijing and Tel Aviv have shared economic ties, particularly in technology and infrastructure, China's alignment with Qatar in this instance complicates relations. For Israel, the strike in Doha was justified as a necessary measure against Hamas leaders it deems responsible for orchestrating attacks. For Beijing, the same strike was an unacceptable breach of sovereignty. The clash of narratives underscores the widening gap in how different powers interpret international law and security. The US finds itself in an awkward position. Washington counts both Israel and Qatar as close allies. Qatar hosts the Al Udeid Air Base, a critical hub for US military operations across the Middle East. An Israeli strike on Qatari soil risks undermining US-Qatar relations, even as Washington struggles to maintain its unwavering support for Israel. China's swift condemnation places additional pressure on the US to clarify its own position. Does Washington back Israel's right to strike Hamas leaders abroad, or does it stand with Qatar's claim of sovereignty violation? Either choice risks upsetting a key ally. In Arab capitals, the Israeli strike in Doha is being read as a dangerous precedent. If Israel is willing to cross Qatari borders to target Hamas, what stops similar strikes in Oman, Kuwait, or even further afield? Beijing's intervention offers reassurance to Qatar and, by extension, to other Gulf states wary of Israeli military reach. It also signals to Arab nations that China is willing to speak out forcefully where others remain cautious. While Lin Jian's remarks were forceful, they were also carefully balanced. Beijing condemned the action, but it did not condemn Israel as a whole. This nuance preserves diplomatic flexibility, leaving the door open for continued trade and dialogue with Tel Aviv. The emphasis remained squarely on sovereignty and territorial integrity, values Beijing champions as universal and non-negotiable. By framing its objection in these terms, China avoids entangling itself in the deeper Israeli-Palestinian conflict while still projecting moral authority. The next stage will reveal whether China's condemnation is purely rhetorical or whether it translates into action. Options include pushing the issue at the United Nations Security Council, where Beijing holds veto power, or engaging in direct diplomacy with Qatar and Israel. For now, Lin Jian's words stand as China's most forceful reaction to Israel's regional operations in years. The statement reverberates not only through Middle Eastern capitals, but across the global stage. China strongly condemns the attack and firmly opposes Israel's act of violation of Qatar's territorial sovereignty and national security, the spokesman reiterated, leaving no ambiguity. The Israeli strike in Doha marks a turning point, not just for Qatar, but for global diplomacy. For Israel, it demonstrates an expanded battlefield. For Qatar, it represents an assault on sovereignty. For the United States, it creates a delicate balancing act. And for China, it is an opportunity to reinforce its role as a defender of international law and a rising power in the Middle East. Lin Jian's words, delivered calmly but firmly in Beijing, captured the moment. A conflict that began in Gaza has now reached the heart of the Gulf, pulling global powers into its orbit. And in this tense environment, Beijing has made clear where it stands.